we've been working really hard on um, something that's equally long time coming for BUIC that I'm excited to start sharing more for.
What's the cost of building something that most people cannot even comprehend today?
Yeah, you just got doxxed and there's three SUVs full of guys pulling up outside your house, and
Is it about exploration, connecting, or the sheer scale? Like, what point must be met for you to think like, okay, dope, now I can just let it
the
ride?
best feeling in the world as a founder is to take something to a point where somebody else is in charge of it and they're doing a better job than if you were on it full time.
If Otherside is your Halliday moment, is there also like a message that you've thought on hiding deep inside of the world?
When we first started thinking about what Otherside could be, Wiley and I would talk on the phone for hours, kind of brainstorming. The hard part is thinking on a really long time horizon, and trying to deal with all the stuff that comes after, success. Like,
Hi, Greg. Thanks so much for your time. Before we start, I'd like to dive a little into you as a founder, of course, into Otherside, into ApeCo and ApeChain, and possibly into some alpha along the way. But to kick things off, after years of development, countless planning, tons and tons of ideas and tests and trips and breaking world records, to having town halls in bubbles, to battling it out in bathrooms, and recently playing tag in the latest Outbreak mode, Otherside's persistent world is kinda almost here. So my first question is, how do you feel?
I'm excited. Yeah, this has been something that's been a very long time coming. And a lot of blood, sweat, and tears have gone into the process from um, for years at this point, and I'm just super proud of the work that the team has put together, especially over the past year. And honestly, I feel blessed that Figgy has been running the project more recently, and he's done a tremendous job. The best feeling in the world as a founder is to take something to a point where somebody else is in charge of it and they're doing a better job than if you were on it full time. And that's the way I feel with Otherside, and the kind of love and care that the team is putting into the build. Every 2 weeks, there's countless updates that are coming live, and we're gearing up very, very soon for Nexus and the official kind of persistent state of Otherside to go live.
Dope. Dope. Yeah, I gotta be honest, and I've already said this multiple times. Like, to me, the Otherside is possibly like it is the most ambitious project coming out of Web3. Like, I believe this can really be our Ready Player One moment. And essentially, you're kind of stepping into the shoes of James Halliday, which brings me to my question. Like, what parts of Halliday do you relate to most in how you're envisioning and shaping Otherside?
I think the right now we're in this kind of magical moment, for example, where we've just opened up the avatar spec over to the community. We published really detailed documentation on this, and so now we're starting to see different communities pop up into Otherside. We've got Foxy Fam, so you can play as a cute little fox guy. You've got Grills Gang, so it's just literally teeth that you're running around as. And of course, Bored Apes, Mutants, Kodas, Voyagers. And I think, to me, that's kind of the funnest part of what we think of as the metaverse, is really being able to bring your own identity avatar into this world, and who cares if it doesn't like match aesthetically one to one with what's there before. I think opening up that composability so that people can be playing as whatever they want. They can switch avatars, they can trade them, they can send them. Like, that's, to me, is, I think that's the most powerful part to me when I think about the Ready Player One kind of experience. It's just like the mashup that we see. It's like, back in the day as kids, you'd be making suicides at Taco Bell, putting a little bit of everything into your drink, and it's kind of that's what we're doing on a video game layer. It's just um, making it so people can bring whatever they want into the world and make their own special suicide of a game cocktail.
um, I promise we're gonna like skip the Halliday reference after this one, but I just have to
Oh, it's all
ask.
good.
Um, if Otherside is your holiday moment, is there also like a message that you've thought on hiding deep inside of the world?
There's a lot of love and care that has gone into every every detail of this world. I think part of the thing that people don't understand is by the time you're walking around a world, whether it's the swamp or Nexus or Metropolis, each of these places has gone through countless hours of planning and illustrations and concept art and to then rendering, and many people are touching these things. And so of course there's always these moments where we want to show just how much love and care has gone into these worlds, and plant little Easter eggs and things that will ladder up into experiences that won't go live for months and months and sometimes even years later. Um, it's one of the funnest parts of the job. So absolutely, there's things there that I hope people will stumble upon and find and enjoy. Um,
Sick,
yeah.
sick. Yeah, you just touched on like your inner child. And I'm in my early 30s now, and what I've realized is like the older I get, with more things on my plate and the more decisions I have to juggle, like I started paying more and more attention to what my inner child and my younger self would have thought is dope. So my two-part question is there a part of you that's building other sides solely to give people what you wish existed when you were younger? And what would your younger self say if they could walk through the other side today?
When we first started thinking about what Otherside could be, Wiley and I would talk on the phone for hours, kind of brainstorming. And these virtual worlds, it's something that we bonded over a lot. When I basically had a couple major touchstones to our like friendship, it was books. Everybody from David Foster Wallace to Roberto Bolaño to um, arguing about them and others to really MMORPGs. For him, it was a lot around like Star Wars Galaxies, Ultima, and others. And for me, and for both of us, World of Warcraft. But for me, really, the biggest influence kind of on my life since I was a kid was this game called EverQuest, and it was to the point where if I get nostalgic for my childhood, it's one of the first things that I like my brain conjures up. Countless hours spent on EQ in the bazaar or Eastern Commons trading or walking through, the woods of Greater Fadark or some of these places. And um, it was a cruel game. It could be very difficult. Like, the first experience so many people had of EverQuest, or at least I did for sure, was spawning in the elf city. It was this kind of city of tree houses, and then immediately not realizing you're in like, hundreds of feet above the ground and falling to your death, and then being like, wait, what the fuck just happened? Um, but it was uh, an amazing world where I met people on that game that became lifelong friends. My best friend at the time, he met his wife through that game. His now wife was the little sister to somebody we met when we were 10 years old playing EverQuest. Um, and I think in a lot of ways, like the dream here is that like as our digital lives get more and more, just consume our regular analog lives even more. How do we create these richer experiences for folks to enjoy, and have more ownership over. Um, to this day, sometimes I'll go back and I'll play emulated servers of EverQuest that like basically try and make it look like and feel like what it did 20 years ago, just to like get a little taste of it. And each of those um, releases, they actually end up having to like sometimes they get sued and shut down and all these kinds of things, but they, occasionally they survive. And I just really want, you know, when we were thinking about Otherside, we're like, how do we create the just like the right conditions for somebody to fall in love with a virtual world,
Mm.
and like create the right conditions for people to meet each other and engage, and I don't know, make money even because so many of these games were like, I think Wiley sold a Jedi in Star Wars Galaxies for more money than he'd ever made doing anything else when he was in high
Oh,
school.
crazy. Crazy.
Um, and yeah, so in a lot of ways, yes, like Otherside is the fulfillment of desire. I mean, when we started conceiving of what Otherside could be, we felt just this amazing openness towards, Bored Ape had been such a success, and we were looking at, cool, what is the next thing that we really want to like pour ourselves into and make real. Whenever you try and make something big and complex, you should never underestimate the amount of people that will try and stop you, or problems that will come up in your wake. And so you really need to have a stubborn sense of vision on the thing. And it was a thing that we really coalesced around of like, fuck it, let's, it's a big swing for the fences, but it's one that we want to make.
That's a beautiful entry basically into my next question as well, because like Warcraft mods, the Fortnite editor, Minecraft, like Roblox, even GTA RP, and many more, like those games slash applications are massive because they give people the freedom to create, share, and to explore the creation of others. So when you close your eyes and you imagine Otherside finished, although it can never actually be finished and finalized, is it about exploration, connecting, or the sheer scale? Like, what point must be met for you to think like, okay, dope, now I can just let it ride?
To me, there's a couple different of versions of this, but for aspects that are important. But I think the most is just making sure that the ethos that we set out to build Otherside with is consistent and congruent with the delivery. Meaning, we felt the most important thing was, as we build this, we need to the degree technically possible, put the same tools that we're using to build the thing into the hands of those people, that are part of our community. In the same way that owning a Bored Ape granted you rights to, a license to use that ape commercially, and we've seen dozens and dozens of businesses sprout up. Some, with real physical locations like Bored and Hungry or Bored Cuban down in Miami. Um, we wanted to think about Otherside in a similar vein, which is if mods and kind of remixing of these game modes has been the source of so many of the richest video game experiences over the past 20, 30 years. How can we take a much more as aggressive a stance as possible and just like putting those same tools into people's hands? And so really that's what the ODK is about. And that's what I think is actually the the main driver for Otherside's ongoing success is how can we constantly be opening up that tool set and bringing in everybody from community builders to AA and AAA game devs from across the world to experience what it's like to build in a on-chain metaverse. They don't have to worry about the technical parts there of smart contracts and that sort of thing. They can just focus on making the best experience possible and trying to find novel ways of or not of monetizing it. um and so yeah, to me it's like I want to, with one hand, be creating the most ambitious, worthy of exploration worlds possible, and with the other hand, I want to encourage people to build on top of the same tools and the same assets that we've created for
Mm.
folks.
And when it comes to building, like for anyone, like Otherside is built in Unreal Engine, but for those who aren't as familiar with 3D workflows, like how would you describe the relationship between Unreal Engine, the Otherside, and the ODK?
For sure. So my philosophy is you should own as little tech as possible. That like tech is hard. You don't want to own the operating system. You want to create create the things in between that makes it all work and usable for folks. And Unreal Engine is, in our opinion, by far and away the best game engine on the planet. You're seeing even games that have literally multi-billion-dollar studios behind them pivoting after years of development hell away from their own game engines to then go on Unreal. I think that's what recently happened with League of Legends with their shooter, for example. And so Unreal is just like, it's incredible, and it was important to us to be building on Unreal. That said, there's a couple different kind of layers to this thing. We're partners with Unreal Engine. We're working there. We also are partnered with M Squared, and their tech is an integral part of the Otherside stack. M Squared has this vision of hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people being able to congregate in virtual spaces together, whereas Unreal is usually capped, Fortnite, it's like 100, 200 people, and that's generally where these things cap out at. Having the just mass density of thousands of people in the same space that we had with First Trip, Second Trip, Project Dragon, that's all thanks to our partnership with and integration of M Squared into our stack. And so, and then of course there's all the things that we're adding on top of both of those. And with Unreal, whether you're coding a game in Blueprint or in C++, and then M Squared has its own quirks and limitations that we artfully work around sometimes, because it's so powerful in giving these kind of mass density experiences that we love. So the ODK is essentially a version of Unreal Engine that folks are opening up, that is pre-programmed with all of our assets and numbers of blueprints that we use in Otherside. That and every time that we develop and ship a new experience, whether that's Bathroom Blitz with our friends at Command Line, or Otherside Outbreak from Prismatic Studios, the ODK gets to be a richer and richer experience where there's parts of this thing from, it's just that much easier to develop a shooter or certain kinds of game mechanics on top of the ODK because we'll have opened up those things. In a similar way, you can think about Warcraft 3, enabling Dota and all these things where it's like, there's a reason why at first it was just these minions walking down these lanes because that was logic that was pre-programmed into this, into the Warcraft 3 custom map builder. And so our goal with the ODK is, with every experience that we develop and build on top of Otherside, how can we turn around, package up as many of those blueprints as possible to make it available to our community so that like people can keep building on top of everything that's come before.
Yeah. One thing I read in your in the recent roadmap was that obviously there's still, you know, a barrier to enter when it comes to utilizing the ODK and Unreal Engine, but other deed holders will not have to. Like there are stickers and there are things they can just build. And I quickly wanted to ask you to dive into that as well. For anyone, you know, being scared of, oh my God, I don't know how Unreal Engine works. Like, what can I build?
Yeah, of course. So the idea here is for, you know, uh, amateur, semi-pro, and professional devs that know how to work in a game engine, the ODK is a perfect place for you to pick up and ship things and have an eager community waiting to kind of test, break, have fun with, and engage with your product and your game. But for so many of us that are more, you know, creators, but aren't game devs by nature, there's a bunch of different other areas that we are developing UGC tools. So whether that's stickers for folks to like share, collect, and monetize, or wearables for your Voyager avatar. We'll be releasing shortly Voyager 2.0, which is kind of the default avatar for our metaverse that um, will have a really robust cosmetics and wearable feature set so that people can be, you know, selling hats or hoodies or all kinds of different other wearables. You know, the sky's the limit for folks to appear as. So you don't necessarily need to think about hiring a 3D modeler to model out like your entire 10K PFP collection. If you're an NFT founder, it can just be around creating unique wearables. Sometimes maybe you are engaging with a 3D modeler. Other times maybe you're just actually applying graphics and those kinds of things to existing models. Yeah.
Oh, super dope. Like a bit of a technical follow-up question. Unreal Engine showcased version 5.6, I believe, a couple of months ago. And yeah, crazy, obviously. But I bring this up because Otherside just migrated to Unreal Engine 5.5. And now I understand you can't just, you know, mention what you're building behind closed doors, or I suppose we're going to see it anyway pretty soon. But you already gave us a little teaser not too long ago. So instead of asking you directly, can you explain like what's currently not possible in Unreal Engine 5.4 and why it was so important for you to upgrade to 5.5?
Absolutely. And you know, Unreal Engine, I think they're, you know, now they're even working on 5.7, I
Yeah.
think. So it's always an endless it's why it's great to have to not own the game engine. There's like massive hundreds of engineers that are constantly making this thing better. But one of the biggest things that was kind of unlocked with Unreal Engine 5, you know, when we first started this, we weren't even on Unreal 5 yet. You know, the other side's been in development for years. So Unreal 5 brought together things like Nanite that makes environments just like super crispy, high fidelity. Just everything looks amazing. Abilities for, you know, and to lower the hardware requirements for some computers to kind of actually get in and see this stuff. So Nanite was a huge one earlier on, but now with, in particular with 5.5 and 5.6, it's the proc gen, the kind of procedural generation of lands that is incredible. If you think back to games like No Man's Sky, one of the things that was so amazing about No Man's Sky when it came out was just this idea that there was these hundreds of planets, literally planets that you could go and visit, and they were being procedurally generated. They were unique essentially to your experience, but there was all these rules and mechanics that would go into it. So it wasn't like, you know, the trick with randomness is always to figure out what's the rule set that can make really pleasing, thoughtful, engaging randomness, and not just like true randomness is chaos, stupid, and not so much fun. And so Unreal 5.6 and 5.5 have new proc gen tools into them that make it really easy for you in game, in the editor, actually, to um, set some parameters and generate an environment. And as we're thinking about um, two things, it's like, when it's obviously an incredible tool to have when you're trying to make a really expansive, unique world for people to explore, um, as evidenced by the success of No Man's Sky. But it's also, for us, the interesting part was like, how can we create some natural language uh, tooling, AI tooling around this, so that you can, just by typing, simple commands, generate worlds and experiences for people to kind of explore. When people think about AI tools in video games, there's a couple different areas of this. There's using AI for NPCs. There's using AI for um, NPCs, quests, text dialogue. There's using AI for 3D asset generation. So actually being like, hey, here's this hat. Can you 3D model it out? But one that people don't think about as much, but that has been really a big one that we've been pushing on, is using AI as a way to engage with some of these more complex tools in a natural language way to kind of help in development in, say, the ODK. And so being able to talk to an AI and say, hey, I want to generate this kind of environment. Here are the certain specs that I want to see. Move the sky up a little, like move the sun up a little higher on the horizon. That's something that we've been cooking on for a bit that we're really excited about.
Well, speaking of, procedural generation and environments, like, and you already touched on Voyages 2.0, but Nexus, obviously, this is the home of coders. The question is, what can people expect in a Nexus? And is there also something, for, I want to say, token gated experiences? Because obviously it is reserved, it's the home of coders. And will we finally find out WTF a coder actually is?
Yeah. Nexus is the ancestral home of the Kodas. It's a space that we saw just a little bit in the second Otherside trailer. So where you see in the first trailer, we see Curtis drinking this bottle that he shouldn't have drank, and Otherside kind of explodes into view and existence around him, and Blue takes him on a little flying tour of it all. But in the second trailer, we kind of show what happened before that, and that's where you see Blue kind of navigating this temple that looks like it's just floating in space, and this kind of looks a bit like a chaos Otherdeed. And you can see that there's these uh, two competing energies that are illustrated in the murals of this temple. There's kind of like the more blue soma energies of the Kodas, and then you see these like reddish chaos energies kind of rising up against it. And we see Blue navigate over to this well and bottle up the last few drops of soma, and then all hell breaks loose, and he gets sucked away, and that's how he winds up in the swamp. And so really with Nexus, what we're seeing is the ancestral home of the Kodas kind of making itself known in Otherside again. So you can explore parts of this thing that have been ruins for a very long time, but they're being rebuilt. and there's a lot of folks there, and it's actually hovering above the world of Otherside, and Nexus, as the name implies, it's the place where you have all these different energies converging and these worlds converging, and we really see it as the place for, from a gameplay perspective, it's our Stormwind, it's our Orgrimmar, it's like our major hub city that we expect people to constantly return to for any number of reasons. We want it to be where you're matchmaking, queuing up for ODK games. We want it to be where you are meeting and trading and socializing. And like with the best cities of MMOs gone past, it's the place where we have different boroughs and kind of neighborhoods for um, um, different things. And as part of that, you know, there are sections of Nexus in the same way that the swamp has the clubhouse that are coda only and mega coda only. And the mega codas are kind of just this one of 100, each tied to a specific biome of Otherside. And yeah, they're like the number one, they look incredible. And so there is an inner temple that's mega coda only that I think is going to be a great spot for folk. And I'm sure we're going to see people try and break into it like we've seen countless times with the clubhouse. That's fun. We'll patch it when it happens. Um, but yeah, that was a really important part here, is we want to make sure that codas and megas feel the love, of how unique and important they are to Otherside storyline.
Oh, dope. People are gonna love that. So of course, ApeCoin is the economic backbone of Otherside and another major focus. So some people will only want to utilize Otherside to hang out and play games, to socialize, to chill without necessarily building anything, but others will want to go full beast mode and build entire cities and experiences like Metropolis, Bathroom Blitz, or Outbreak, which brings me to my revenue question. Like, as it stands, the Agora is meant for something else, but are you going to introduce a marketplace similar to Fab, like the Unreal Engine marketplace, to have builders like Tropical, Copperwood, Reader, Bailey, or Fundoom, and others build and sell full environments or assets utilizing ApeCoin?
So one of the benefits of building Otherside in a way where we're depending more on the blockchain than on closed source databases is all of the bits you need for a marketplace. It's already there. We can be using OpenSea or Magic Eden or other marketplaces. They're composable with, these are on-chain assets, and so they are royalty protected. So we could always block blur if creators on the other side aren't getting royalties, for example. But the tooling to have, not just our own marketplace, but other marketplaces sprout up that are more bespoke is already there. There is an in-game marketplace that we'll be sharing more on soon, but we want people to be able to trade, obviously in game. I would think of it more like a tab in your UI where you could be like trading things rather than like a specific location. Although there is kind of the bizarre style kind of marketplace area of Nexus. But we want people to trade from everywhere. So yeah, that's an important part. I think the point you make about like the Fab kind of 3D asset marketplace is a really good one. We're not there yet, to be honest. And like I think that is like a really, as the kind of creator ecosystem around Otherside grows, I think we could see more and more demand for something like that. But in the short term, it's really just like the in-game marketplace that we're focused on for assets and wearables and items and that sort of thing.
Okay. Um, so, of course, you've been pretty vocal also about the inefficiencies of the ApeCoin DAO, like leading to the proposal for a new entity called ApeCo. And I was wondering, like, what was the tipping point for you that made you believe that the decentralized governance model as it existed was no longer serving, the broader community's interest?
Yeah. Um, I think when we started ApeCoin, we really did try and do everything absolutely by the book. What we, and it's funny, there's a lot of DAOs out there that they're DAOs in name only. They have been, I think some lawyer was kind of dunking on us when we were putting up this proposal for vote, saying that this, they were they didn't feel like this was the right move. And lo and behold, I Googled the DAO that they started that's been around for like a year and a half, and like there wasn't a single proposal. Like they like just literally launched the token and then like never actually allowed anyone to post anything. It's like, okay, cool, thanks. So ApeCoin had, I think, a more um, we have more proposals and engagement on this than most DAOs, almost any DAO, in my opinion, that I'm aware of. Yet there was a lot of growing frustration that we were seeing, like with any democratic situation. Democracy is messy, and and I, leading up to that proposal, it was just kind of deafening. Folks were saying like we should just do this, and I think
Mhm.
that's evidenced by like you should kind of help take the reins here. We're done with this part of the experiment, and I think that was evidence from just the perception today. IP, I think it was like 99.67 or something ridiculous percent in favor of winding down the ApeCoin DAO and setting up the new entity. And literally, I think it was like two people. Like one of them was kind of caught out as a scammer on ApeChain, and the other one would be losing a job. With the, I think if I put up for vote to the community, like, is the sky blue? We would have had like less approval. So I think, yeah, a strong alignment from everybody involved that this would be a worthy way of kind of taking it, ApeCoin's next chapter. And certainly we've seen it, with other tokens and ecosystems in the marketplace, like Pudgy Penguins and Pengu. Like there's no grant funding, there's no, there's no democracy, and people are happy with how it's going, and it's like more power to them. So I think it was important to bring ApeCoin kind of into 2025.
Mhm. Like, I loved how you put this in a recent tweet of yours. You like simply said, ApeCo has many jobs, but like one of them is to hyper financialize ApeCoin. And the recent rollout on Solana had like a massive impact already with I think 5 million on day one volume and like 20 something protocol integrations and tons, of course, of new liquidity. And now you're making a similar move on hyper EVM, which I personally am super pumped about. So this brings me to my question as well. Besides it being the goal to spread liquidity and user activity across multiple chains, is it also the goal to create like specialized use cases for each one of them?
Yeah. One of the biggest things with ApeCoin, as we think about, quote unquote, hyper financializing ApeCoin, one of the what we also mean by that is how do we make sure ApeCoin is as like usable, liquid, tradable, you know, basically expanding the on-chain utility of the token so that anywhere that you go, um, as a degen or trader or just consumer crypto lover, anywhere you go on chain, that you can use ApeCoin and kind of the strategies of the day. So Hyperliquid, there's a lot of folks that are obviously trading on, the most popular perp decks, out there, but they're also doing things like looping assets back and forth between different protocols to kind of farm them or take loans and that kind of thing. And so we want to make sure that ApeCoin could be part of those loops if you wanted to. And similarly with Solana, the same thing. Like if you want to sell to ApeCoin, if you want to take a loan against it, if you want to use it to farm a protocol, like it should be there and available for you to do that. And when ApeCoin started in 2022, um, ETH was really, it felt like the only game in town. Like Solana obviously had some serious activity, but it was like nothing to where it is today. And I think expanding ApeCoin's on-chain footprint so you could be like using it in any of these ecosystems is really important. And so, especially with getting ApeCoin live on Solana and making it more liquid there's dozens and dozens of platforms and protocols that we were able to integrate with quickly that it expanded the kind of use cases for the token. So like BankerBot, being able to like message somebody on Twitter and send them one ApeCoin, or Time.Fund, being able to book somebody's time with ApeCoin, or just any of these liquidity pools and swaps and things that were available to folks. Like we just want to keep expanding that footprint. So up next is Hyperliquid. After that, we're looking at Base, we're looking at BNB. It's like basically anywhere that folks are going to have fun and engage on chain. We want to make sure ApeCoin's there. And like you said, Solana was the first, and we saw a massive increase to ApeCoin's on-chain volume just following that. And I think if we do our job right, like we can make this thing much more liquid and omnipresent across like a bunch of different ecosystems.
So when this interview releases, ApeFest is just about to start or has already started. And as always, I'm pretty sure you guys have been cooking. So for anyone at home wondering what's about to happen, wishing to be there as well, is there any alpha or anything that you can share ahead of what's to come?
When I came back as CEO like a year and a half ago, I really wanted Otherside to fulfill its vision and ambition. And to me, that meant creating a really rich, vibrant world that anybody in our community would love to explore, fall in love with like the visuals of, and enable it to be the best place to buy, sell, like for creators to monetize their own 3D worlds and experiences on top of. I think we are on the precipice of fulfilling that vision. Now that's like the start of something. It's not like an end, but to me, that's what the persistent state really represents, is like having a rich, immersive on-chain world for folks to constantly return to, where new experiences are coming live all the time. Some of them by us here at Yuga, some of them by creators from across the globe. And where we see things like if a new game mode goes viral on Roblox, like it should be easy for somebody to pick up the torch and be like, fuck it, we're growing a garden in Otherside too, and like we're doing our own version over here. And I think the tools, the on-chain economy, all that stuff is coalescing into a really beautiful spot now to make all that stuff possible. And then the other thing I really wanted, and this is more to me about legacy than anything, is making sure that Bored Apes stand as just one of these crypto assets that will stand the test of time against a sea of stuff that will come in and out of fashion. And we've been working really hard on um, something that's equally long time coming for BOIC that I'm excited to start sharing more for. But that's the one that's really near and dear to my heart too. It's like at the end of the day, being in crypto for all these years, it can be a mixed bag. You start to realize there's very few tokens that are worth holding, unfortunately, sometimes, as like many of our P&Ls can show. And with BOIC, it's always been about how do we create a club that can be, we're finding really interesting ways for people to kind of have fun and collect and do stuff on chain and in person. Just kind of expanding the utility of what it could mean to hold an NFT, from entering the quote unquote bathroom and graffitiing on a pixel wall, as we did when we first launched, to Otherside and games like Apes vs Mutants and Dookie Dash, um, and getting people together in person at ApeFest, and special limited edition merch drops and that sort of thing. And I think the next phase for Bored Ape is really around like not just having a once a year moment where we could all get together, but actually having that spot um, that's always open for us to return to. So,
Oh man.
yeah.
Oh, sick, sick. I'm pretty sure everyone will know what you're talking about. The final question. I don't say this part to like compliment you, but I've met you 3 times now. And each time I was able to observe you, I was like super impressed by how your thought process works and how far you're able to think, but also like are forced to think essentially. So it's a bit of a philosophical final question, perhaps, but to boil it down, like what's the cost of building something that most people cannot even comprehend today? And what does it mean to build something that's meant to outlive you?
Yeah. Um, the cost of Otherside is very real, obviously. Just even in dollars and cents, it is an insanely ambitious project, and one that we have put a lot of love and care into, and just an insane amount of capital at the same time. Um, and but really, I think money. You can throw money at some problems, but what you find, especially with video games over and over in the market too, is like you see um, video games are very hard to develop. They take very big teams. There's a lot of coordination. There's a lot of complexity, and the outcomes are often relatively binary. By which I mean is like, is the game fun or is it not fun? And then like that's it.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, it's sort of whatever. It's like, no, it needs to be very good or it doesn't matter. It's a binary outcome. And we've seen even just this year and last year, I think certain games have spent literally $100 million, whatever, and then just like were pulled immediately. They didn't hit the mark. And so it's as much about the capital that you put into something like this as it is about the keeping people focused on the goal, um, empowering and inspiring the team to really chase after the vision in like a hardcore way, because you can't do this thing soft. Um, One of the things that I try and tell the team, because it's easy to get lost in, be slogging through the mud and the details that can come up, and you can lose the forest for the trees. It's basically just like, how do we keep the main thing the main thing? And I think Figgy's done an amazing job at that, and I'm really excited for folks to see the main thing roll out. And when I think about Bored Ape, I mean, yeah, like I you see other folks in the market. Anytime something new comes up and gets a little hot, like this is going to be the next BOIC. And what they say about that is like the next BOIC, they mean like the insane run up that we had from, our launch to four friends kind of selling, $180 ape JPEGs on the internet, to activation after activation, that as that was going on, Bored Apes went to some absurd, almost $500,000 or whatever it was. But with crypto, it's like anything can have like an insane run for a brief moment of time. And even while we were doing that with Bored Apes, there was other things that sprouted up that had like, Moonbirds or Clone X or whatever. Like they have like these incredible moments in time, and then, you know, faltered and new management came in, and with Moonbirds, I'm really excited about what Spencer's doing there. But I guess this is all to say that like I think that the hard part is thinking on a really long time horizon, and trying to deal with all the stuff that comes after, success. Like one of the things that one of my partners told me as we were getting off the ground with BOIC is just kind of like anytime you have big success, you got to put 10% aside for the devil. Uh, every time that like Bored Ape would be doing really well, Wiley and I would actually joke to each other that like, oh, next week it's something terrible is going to happen. It's just like everything has its equal and opposite kind of reaction, and you know, sometimes that was some random fight over something. Sometimes it was cool, yeah. You just got doxxed, and there's three SUVs full of guys pulling up outside your house, and your wife's crying, and you got to figure out, like, okay, we're moving because we got doxxed at this house, and we got to go. To all the absurdities of this conspiracy theories that we had to deal with, and that kind of thing. And so when I see people in crypto like having a ton of success, I wish them well. And I also know that there's like so much that just no one's ever going to know about, that I know is just going to happen. If you see somebody docs that's having a tremendous amount of success, they're going to start dealing with the weirdos and the people and the lawsuits and the psychos and all these things. And how do you you got to just throw that shit to the side, stay focused on the mission and the goals, and for BOIC, that's been a lot around community and having fun and giving us a place to congregate, virtually and Otherside once a year at ApeFest, and hopefully something somewhere else soon here.
Thank you so much. I think I can speak on behalf of, the majority of Web3, but you're an absolute pillar of our space. So, it's easy to like, at least in my opinion, it's easy to check CT and look what works and what doesn't. But I think it's an entirely different place and perspective if you're the person that is actually leading the way and everyone else is just looking. So, the space would be entirely different if it wasn't for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.